you a Rocky child?
I am not. I'm Sanford. Yeah. Yes, my husband's at the fish hatchery. He's a fish culturalist there in Hoffman. Oh, okay. Oh, if I was back in Sanford, it'd be like cousin, 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 friend, neighbor, cousin. Yeah. Okay. Yes, yes, I will. I will leave. Oh, that's fine. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. That's fair. Awesome. I'm good to go. Yeah.
We have had three go sites. I'm sorry, three on sites.
Can't hear you.
Well, I'm trying, and it's not. Jake, are we?
Push for a name. Thank you.
We have had three. I have warned April that sometimes hearing is an issue in this room. I've also told her that questions are any time. Okay? April Pope is the DNR deer expert. And I've asked her to come because we have our deers in herds. Let's say they do. Deers come in herds, and we have a herd. And the greatest number that I have seen at any given time is 14. We have had 3 babies this spring reported on the campus. Now, they're wonderful creatures and they're ours, but we don't know a whole lot about them. And therefore, we've brought the expert. And she will be with us to tell us everything we want to know, and if she doesn't, it's our responsibility to raise the questions. April, we are thrilled to have you, my dear.
Thank y'all for having me, and sorry for the delay. My name's April Boggs Pope. As I've been introduced, I'm with the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. Can you hear me? Let's see.
Okay.
Aha. There we go. All right. Hopefully that'll work. So I'm the deer biologist with the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. And I'm happy to be here talking about deer today. So we're going to hopefully go over all you want to know about deer, but as has been mentioned, please just ask any questions if you have them. All right, so might not have realized with how abundant deer are nowadays that there was a time when deer populations were decimated by unregulated or market hunting. The North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission was established in 1947, and that's, we were getting into the deer game back then, but white-tailed deer reintroductions go all the way back to 1890, and as recently as 1987. So you can see there were deer that were brought in from out of state, and there were also deer that were from other parts of North Carolina that got moved around, and now those reintroductions have obviously been successful, and they are a very abundant species. So Right now, the population's probably around 1.2 million in North Carolina. With the harvest, the record harvest was a couple years ago, 2023, 2024, of 189,000 deer. So that's one of the ways that we measure their population, and it's been pretty good. So they're pretty abundant, and actually too abundant in some areas, if you ask some folks. And then there's areas where maybe in the mountains they're not as abundant as people would like. But you can see all the way back, 1976, it was less than our yearly harvest now, their population. If there are any hunters in here, you might remember when you couldn't even harvest does because the population was so low. Deer, they have very powerful senses. Their sense of smell is 500 to 1,000 times better than a human's, and they can tell different smells apart pretty well. They might be able to smell that coyote that's around, or smell that corn that's on the ground, or smell the hunter that's in the tree who didn't do the best job of covering up their scent. Or maybe they even tried to, and it just did not work. So for sight, they see movement very well, and you can see in the graphic, since their eyes are on the sides of their head, it gives them, I think, around 300-degree vision. That's a lot better than human vision. They are a prey animal, so they need to be able to see pretty much all the way around. But with their eyes being on the side of their head, it means that their depth perception isn't very great, and they're farsighted. Their vision is very, very good at night. They can see about 18 times better than humans can at night. But because of the structures that allow them to see that well, headlights can overwhelm their vision. So it can temporarily blind them, which is why a deer in the headlights, they literally cannot see in that moment. Or, their instincts kick in, and when they think there's danger, they're supposed to try to figure it out and then run away. So they get a little overwhelmed, and they can't see well whenever they see headlights. They can see blues up to 20 times better than humans, but they can't see reds and oranges very well. And they can also see UV light a lot better than we can as well. Their hearing is similar to ours, but better with direction. You've probably seen deer moving their ears around so that they can tell where something is coming from. And they're more sensitive to higher frequencies. They can also run up to 30 miles per hour, and one of their senses, so whenever they're running away, they'll use sight. They'll throw up their tail, it's like a white flag, and then the other deer in the area might be able to see that, and then they can go, oh, danger, and run off as well. So you've probably heard about the rut. That's around October, November, December, depends on the area of the state. So in the central part of North Carolina, where we're close to, and northeastern part, see Scotland County, November 3rd is the peak conception date. So when folks are timing the rut, they're timing the mating behavior of deer. So deer will be, a buck will be chasing a doe around. He'll be smelling, using that sense of smell to sense whenever the doe is ready to mate. and he'll keep a close watch on her. And peak mating is around November 3rd in this area. So we've estimated this from fawns or like fetuses, road-killed does or harvested does. You can actually measure the length of the fawn to see when they were bred. Fawns are born around now. They've been being born, for at least a month. If a deer was bred in around October, then she'd probably have her fawn around the end of April, beginning of May. It takes around 200 days. So they're pregnant for about 200 days. And this time of the year is actually the most stressful for a doe because she's just had a baby and now she's having to find food so that she can produce milk for that baby. Summer can be pretty stressful for the does. And at this time, bucks are also growing their antlers. So some deer signs that you might see in the woods, which scrapes you can have all year round. A scrape is just where deer has pawed the ground. He might have had a branch over the scrape. They like branches. They'll lick them, they'll bite them, and just hit them with their antlers. And they leave scent behind that lets other deer know that they've been in the area. They have glands all over their faces, and they'll also pee in the dirt. So they're making sure that everybody else knows I've been here, and they have scent glands on their legs too that will leave some scent behind when they're doing that. A rub is where a buck, he's rubbing his antlers. He's getting primed up for the rut. He's ready for mating season, and he also is trying to get the velvet off of his antlers, which is just this soft tissue that protects the antlers whenever they are growing. So fawns, hopefully you've seen some fawns around. I heard that there's been one spotted, so that's awesome. Fawns are born without scent, so a doe will actually leave a fawn laying in an area to protect it. So she does have scent on her. So she'll leave her baby in a safe place, whether she thinks it's a safe place, whether or not it's safe or not. She'll leave them while she goes out and about getting the food that she needs to produce milk. And then she'll come back and nurse the baby, and then she'll leave again. So it's not uncommon to find fawns that are alone, but a fawn that's like this alone, even if it might be up and about, it's probably okay unless it's showing signs of like dehydration. So best bet's to leave them be unless you know that the mom has left it. You can keep an eye on it. The mom should come back, or if you know that the mom has been hit by a car, then there are options for rehabbing as long as it's not in a disease zone. We'll talk about diseases later. But you can see they've got really good camouflage, so it can be hard to see them out in the woods. Yeah.
How long do they remain scentless?
I don't think it's very long. I honestly don't have a good answer for that. But so within a couple of weeks, they can actually outrun a human or a dog, coyote. So probably around a month or so, they have enough scent. But at that time, they're moving around with mom a little bit more, and they can outrun any predators, within reason. So it's within those first couple of weeks that it's really important for them to be scentless. while they're stationary. Where do deer live? So what is deer habitat? Deer are generalists and can live in a variety of vegetation types, and they're very much they're called an edge species. They like being in places like this where there's woods. Sometimes being around people makes them feel a little safer in these urban areas because, predators might be scared away. And also, we plant so many plants and stuff that they would like to munch on. So when we move out into the woods, they're like, "Oh, okay. Like, I'll eat your plants. Like, thank you for planting that." Habitat is made up of their food. They need a variety of food sources that'll get them through the whole year. So, the plants in the summer are different from the ones that they might be eating in the fall and winter. Water, cover, and they need it to be in a good organization.
April, how territorial are they?
It depends on the season. Bucks are actually going to travel in bachelor groups during the summer. Like they're just hanging out just with the guys. The females, they're off by themselves or in family groups with their fawns. But if resources are scarce, a doe might chase off other does. You can see like their video of them sparring and stuff. Bucks will get pretty territorial during the fall when they're chasing other bucks off because they want to be dominant and mate with the most does. But yeah, right now they're not super territorial unless it's probably like a doe, like get out of my area, or they might chase away last year's fawns, especially if it's a young buck. They'll move out of their home area at about a year and a half old. So during the fall this year, they're moving away from home, and the mama's going to make sure, because it's they don't need the buck staying around and inbreeding and stuff, and competing for resources. So they'll kick the males out, but the does, the young does might stay around. Of course. So we've already mentioned they love the plants. Browse, that's like your woody vegetation, your trees with leaves and branches that they might eat. Forbs are your little green plants. A lot of them we might think of as weeds. Things like clover and stuff like that would be a forb that they might eat. Mast, that's fruit and acorns and stuff, so things that a plant will produce and drop for them. That's a good portion of their diet. Crops, they love soybeans. During this time of the year, farmers might have an issue, especially if the deer are a little overabundant in an area. They might eat their crops. And then grasses aren't very high percentage of their diet. If you see them in a field, they're probably eating other little green plants. But they'll eat lichens, mushrooms, and some other stuff that you might not think a deer would eat.
They eat poison, huh?
Yes. Yeah, they'll eat things like a greenbrier and everything. They'll eat greenbrier like crazy, and you'd think that a vine that has spines on it wouldn't be very palatable, but apparently it's good. And already mentioned the antlers, so you can see this deer, his antlers are, they're about done growing. It's actually one of the fastest growing bones or tissues the antlers and the velvet, because they'll start growing them, potentially like April, and they're done growing in September or October. They grow very quickly, very large in a short amount of time. So antlers, unlike horns, antlers are made of bone and they drop every year. But a thing like a goat, they have horns and they're made of keratin, like our hair and fingernails and stuff, and they keep those all year round. And I forgot to mention, the previous deer biologist probably took a lot of these photos or the materials and stuff. So if you're interested in any details, let me know. He had some good pictures and slides and stuff to help me out. So this tissue, it's really soft and it can be injured very easily. If you see a deer that has really funky looking antlers, he probably messed them up when they were growing. So maybe he hit a branch too hard, or maybe he got in a slight tussle and the velvet got injured and the antler got injured. So, just overall for deer, so deer management, it's not just about managing the deer. You have human aspects, you have animal aspects, and then you have the environment. So we're trying to look at all of those things when we talk about managing deer. So how things can interact. You have humans, which might feed the deer, cause behavioral impacts, or harvest deer. The deer to the people, they can transmit disease, parasites. They might run out in front of your car, especially when the bucks are running around chasing does, or they might be a nuisance. Then humans can pollute or decrease or increase habitat, which is in the environment. And the environment, if they have too many deer, you can have disease, overcrowding, not enough food. And deer can actually eat themselves out of house and home when they're too abundant. So they can impact the amount of food that's left. If they're in an area in too high of numbers, they can actually create a line where they ate everything up to the point where they can't reach anymore. So you could see out in the woods like a line called a browse line where there's no food left at the bottom. And then deer can put disease in the environment, but also, deer have plenty of positive impacts as well. So deer, they're an abundant species. We like watching them, taking pictures of them, maybe we harvest them and stuff as well.
How do they pass diseases on to humans?
So some diseases can be through, let's see. A lot of it, they might be reservoir for like a tick-borne disease. There can also be like parasites and such. Think things like tuberculosis and actually COVID. They can have it in their population, so they can be a reservoir for things like that. There's a disease called chronic wasting disease. It's a prion disease. It's like mad cow disease. We don't know if they can pass that on to humans. There hasn't been any proven cases of it, but we're keeping an eye on it. So a lot of it's people consuming the meat or being close to the deer, or the deer actually like bringing ticks and such into the yard.
I wanted to know,
Yes, they can definitely do that, especially a buck. He can really wreck a tree with his antlers. Some trees like cedars, they really love. And, over time, they'll, when there's no bark left, all the way around a tree, it'll die. Sometimes if food resources were scarce, they might nibble and such, but it's more of a rubbing thing. Yeah.
They're also a vector for leptospirosis,
Yes.
which is a major problem in dairy cattle.
Yes, there you go. Thank you for mentioning that. That and I believe brucellosis, which can be transmitted to cows as well. And but yeah, so it's not only like human diseases, but diseases with other wildlife. But most deer are pretty healthy. Mostly we worry about diseases that impact them. But, things can get out of whack, and, if a deer brings a whole bunch of ticks into your yard or brings lepto into your yard and gives it to your dog, too, because even dogs can get lepto, get vaccines for that. But we're all impacting each other and our environment. It's the main thing. So, for deer management, we often think about managing their population. So maybe in some areas we want to increase their population, which would mean we would want to improve their habitat. So maybe we need more food out there, need certain plants out there for them to eat. We might want to decrease harvest through regulations or other forms of mortality. Protecting young fawns, maybe we increase coyote harvest so that they're not killing young fawns. Maybe we want to decrease their population, increased harvest through regulations, decrease reproduction, or maybe we like how they are at the moment, and so we keep an eye on things. A lot of the time, we're just trying to manage their impacts on people because, whenever they start impacting people, people notice. We also want to manage the impact of people on deer. So people do a lot of things that can impact deer, like feeding them. Corn's actually not a great food source for them, and I'll show some pictures later. Feeding can change their behavior, but also maybe we move things around, like diseases, by transporting deer, either live or dead, or maybe we just cause them to be less afraid, and then they're more likely to maybe be hit by a car because they're crossing roads, trying to get into people's yards, or maybe they're coming into contact with people's dogs. So, what we do can impact them as well. No management is not a good option. There's plenty of deer out there, and it's our responsibility to make sure that things that they're being looked after, that their populations are in healthy numbers, not overpopulated, so that the animals themselves, the whole population can be healthy.
April, how are hunting quotas established?
So they've stayed pretty steady, but we keep an eye on the harvest. So we'll look at the deer per square mile. Yes. So yeah, the Wildlife Resource Commission, which includes, there's a bunch of folks who are smarter than I am, who are also part of the process of making regulations. So we look at how the population's doing in an area based on harvest and some other data that we have. And if it's looking good, or if they're overabundant, we might do things like increasing the harvest, increasing bag limits, so impacting how many people can harvest. If we think they're not doing well in an area, we might decrease bag limits, or we might decrease the length of the season. So things like that can really impact their population. But some things, we have a hard time with, such as like vehicle collisions. In urban areas, they can kill just as many deer as, hunters or other sources of predation and such. Plenty of deer get hit by cars, and it's not a great way for them to go. And it's not great for people because, it can be pretty dangerous to hit a deer. But yeah, we keep a close eye on things, and every year we look at the regulations. And there's a regulations digest back there if anyone's interested in checking them out. On the deer-human interactions, so as I said, we want to manage their impacts on people, damage to crops or plants, vehicle collisions, interactions with pets, disease, but also we want them to be around too. We enjoy deer for a variety of reasons. Manage the impact of people on deer. So feeding can cause improper nutrition, change behavior, or increase the spread of diseases. So if you look closely, the deer there looks like he's wearing elf shoes. So he's probably got, he has a condition called laminitis. If you're familiar with livestock, they can get it as well. So an improper diet, sometimes caused by a high percentage of corn, can cause their hooves to grow improperly, and they end up with that curve, and then it can eventually turn into something called founder, which is really painful for them because, their bones and such, it can change the way their bones are in their feet. And, if a hoof's growing like that, they can't do anything about it. So they can become malnourished and stuff as they have a hard time getting around. But there's plenty of food around for them if you want to plant a food plot, or just plant some plants in your yard that they like. You can feed them in other ways. So there is a resource on feeding deer. There's a video I was going to show about feeding deer and chronic wasting disease, but it seemed those abilities have been disabled in PowerPoint. It probably wouldn't have worked anyway. Putting video in there sometimes doesn't work. But it's just something to be careful of. Deer are pretty good at finding food, and they'll eat corn, but it's kind of like candy to them. It doesn't have a lot of good stuff for them, but they might come to your bird feeder and eat your sunflower seeds or something too. So deer will be deer. There we go. So these are seasons that we've had established across the state. So we've got antlered and antlerless seasons. These were from this past season. So we have there's a long time that hunters can harvest deer starting in September all the way to January. And there's different allowed weapons types. Yeah.
I've heard the human hair, like you get after you go to the barber shop or whatever, and you put it around where you don't want the deer to come. Is that true?
I've heard that as well. So they don't like human scent that much, but also in an area like this, they're probably smelling a lot of people, so they're going to get used to it.
So what would be another way?
There are some repellents that you can spray on plants. I've heard of one called like Repel-X, something. There's some that'll you put around the plant and it absorbs into the plant and makes it less palatable. You can use fencing. A lot of the time, fencing is one of the best ways just to keep the deer from getting to the plants in the first place is your best bet. Sometimes it can be like some plants they're just really going to like, and you might want to plant something else. Unfortunately. But yeah, if you really care about a plant, you might want to put a cage around it to keep them from getting to it. There's ways to scare them off and such. You can use sound, lights, like motion detector lights, but sometimes they can get used to those in an urban area. But yeah, so it can be a tricky balance with the deer. I've also heard of things, electric fencing and also fishing line. Stuff that they might not be able to see, like fishing line or, pie tins and stuff that make noise that they can see. But apparently fishing line, they can't see it, so it'll spook them if they run into it and they're like, what? Like, I can't see. What is it? But deer over time, they'll get used to things.
Golf ball.
No,
Yeah.
they don't work.
They don't work. I've had
Thank
a
you.
couple farmers tell me they use golf ball.
Unfortunately, I don't, I would have to send you some resources on scaring the deer away. I haven't tried a lot of the stuff, and there's a lot of stuff out there that it's like, well, this person says this, and then you go and look at a study and they're like, actually, that might make it taste like candy to them. But yeah, I would trust other people with the mothballs.
Fencing is effective if it's at least 12 feet high. And talk to the apple growers in the Hudson Valley in New York. That's where, and I've worked with a bunch of them. And they said the only fencing they found, and they said they still get deer will clear 12 feet. And those they
Goodness.
shoot.
That is
Because
fair.
they will give other deer to keep trying.
Yeah,
That's what they said, the big apple orchards up there, you've seen massive fencing.
yeah, it makes sense. A deer would definitely be attracted to an apple orchard. Some of it, if you can get it, typically if you can get it up above the plant or, where deer can reach, most of our landscaping, they're not going to try that hard to get, thankfully. But you never know. If you've got deer candy planted in your yard, they're going to want it. But yeah, so mostly it can be a population thing and a choice of plants that you plant to keep them away. If you're if you'd like me to send you any resources, there's so many resources on repellents. I don't personally focus on repellents and fencing and stuff, but there's a lot of recommendations on it. I know more of the biology side of deer. But I've got my cards back as well. So if you're trying to look for any resources, I'm happy to help. Let's see. So regulations, they're there to manage people. So deer don't know property lines. They don't care about property lines or anything like that. So regulations are needed to help make sure that populations are well managed. That unregulated hunting was an issue in the past. We want to make sure they're not over-harvested and that they're treated humanely as well. We don't, we want to treat the animals with respect and not cause them more pain than necessary if we're harvesting an animal. We don't want to harm animals just to harm them. In the case of chronic wasting disease, regulations can help decrease the spread of disease. So we have a lot of regulations right now dealing with chronic wasting disease.
Talk to us about the disease. What is it? How does it manifest itself?
Yeah, so here, let me see. I've got some slides up ahead. Here, I'll go ahead.
No.
There we go. Or, well, here. Oh, whoops, I went too far. Here we go. So there are some resources. I used QR codes to put some of these in here. If you're interested in it, just let me know and I can send them to you. There's some resources talking about diseases and stuff back there. But this is the main ways of dealing with deer. Excluding them, planting certain plants, repelling them, scaring them, or managing their population. Yeah.
There are some plants that you can put in your yard that will keep deer from munching the veggies in the wild.
Not really. There are some you can plant. Well, I've heard marigolds they're not as fond of. But you can plant some things if you're wanting to protect certain plants. You can plant a plant that they'll like better, as they'll eat that plant first. But there isn't a surefire way. If you send me your contact information or grab a card, if I run across anything, I can send you stuff.
Riding motorcycles, I was told the thing you had to watch out if you saw a deer running along the highway is that they have an instinct not to run in straight lines. And if you try and pass them, they're just as likely to run toward you this kind of way.
Yep, they will definitely do that. I've had a deer run into a truck I was driving because it was running across and it kept running across and I was trying to get away from it. But yeah, they can be a little unpredictable. I mean, they're meant to. You also have to be careful of deer might be traveling in groups. So if you see one, you should definitely slow down because there might be 4 or 5 behind it that you haven't seen yet. So you want to be careful. It might not be the first one that gets you. So ways to deal with deer overpopulation. I don't know that y'all have an overpopulation. If you run into any issues, there are folks out there, there are resources out there to help, like Community Deer Management Assistance Program and urban archery seasons to help keep the population at a manageable level. You can decrease reproduction through harvest and reducing fertility, though reducing fertility is it's very intensive and it's more, let's say if you're trying to use birth control on deer, if it's chemical, then you're going to have to use it you're going to have to give it multiple shots and you're going to have to do that to that same deer for years and years and years. So it's very intensive. And it can be very, it can cost a lot of money. Moving deer is not an option due to stress on the deer and spread of disease. So when folks were reintroducing deer, they ran into a lot of deer. Deer, when they get scared too much or too stressed, they can end up with something called capture myopathy, and their muscles, they just get too stressed, and that can kill them.
How do you repopulate an area?
So people did figure out ways to move deer without causing them as much stress, and especially if you can immobilize them chemically. You just sedate them for a little bit, and then they're not stressed. But nowadays, we don't have to repopulate areas. We let the deer do it themselves. But in the past, you want to keep the deer like its face covered, keep it in the dark, keep things quiet. And you don't want the deer getting too hot or running for too long. And you don't want it if it's in a container and it's freaking out, the best thing to do would just be to set it loose. Because moving it at that point, it'll just stress it out too much. So we have had a urban deer study going on for the past few years, where they have had animals that, maybe they didn't like the collar, and so they would get their foot stuck. And so they'd recapture them real quick, take the collar off, and just let them go, because it was not worth hurting the animal for the data we were looking for. So chronic wasting disease. So this is a big thing in the state and in the country right now. It's in over 30 states. It's a prion disease. A prion's just a misfolded protein. It's not alive, and you can't kill it like you can a virus or something, and it stays in the environment. So it's really weird, and people, we still don't understand it. There are human prion diseases like CJD, and it's all the prion diseases are fatal. Some folks got them. Mad cow disease jumped the barrier back in the 80s and 90s, but for deer and CWD, it hasn't been known to jump. But the best bet is to just avoid attempting that, and don't consume venison from a deer that has CWD.
You're saying prion?
Yes, prion,
How do you spell it?
Prion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But
They're up there.
yeah.
When people shoot the deer and eat them, does the disease spread to humans?
We don't know. If folks are harvesting deer in an area with CWD, we recommend them to get the deer tested, and if it tests positive, to not eat it. And we offer free testing. The closest cases are in Cumberland County. So if folks are harvesting deer in Cumberland County, I would just tell them, harvest the deer, wear gloves, freeze it, and wait for the test results to get back before you eat it. And if someone were to harvest a deer that's positive, we can help with getting rid of that meat. And most people, you're able to harvest up to 6 deer, so you can harvest another deer.
Well, when you harvest them, who do you get to test them?
Yeah, so we take the samples, so people can either drop them off in freezers. They just drop off the deer's head with part of the neck. So they have lymph nodes right in here that we take out, and we send them to a lab to get them tested. There's also meat processors and taxidermists who participate in our Cervid Health Cooperator program, and they will give us samples as well. So there are multiple options for getting us the samples, and then we take all the samples and we send them off to a lab, and they get them typically in 4 to 6 weeks, they'll have the results back. So sometimes folks have to wait a little bit, but freezing it and just waiting for a little bit is the best bet. And so it is a neurological disease. It's spread by saliva, urine, feces, them coming into contact with each other. Stays in the environment. So if someone has a corn pile and a deer is eating at that corn pile and it has CWD, it'll be eating basically out of the same bowl as everyone else, and it's leaving saliva. That saliva can get in the soil, and it can also be on the corn, and it can spread it around to other deer. So spreading them out like food plots or just letting them eat natural vegetation, and not putting corn, in a pile for them to eat is best. The deer, they remain sick for a couple of years, and during that time they're spreading it. And it can become more common in a herd over time and eventually cause population declines. You can't get rid of it once it's in an area, so we try to slow things down. Some of it's through harvest. And some of it's through regulating people, like you can't move a live deer or a dead deer from, certain areas into others. Or if you're moving a carcass, properly dispose of it by getting it to a landfill or burying it and not just like tossing it in the backyard or, on the side of the road or something like some people like to do. So a deer, it won't show symptoms for probably 16 months or so, but during that time they look perfectly healthy, and they're spreading it around. So you shouldn't eat a deer that appears sick, and you also, if you see a deer that's really looking sick, please let us know. We want to know what's going on, but all these symptoms can be common, but these symptoms can also be symptoms of other diseases. So we test for it, because just because a deer's sick doesn't mean it's CWD. But just because a deer looks healthy doesn't mean it doesn't have it. So it's a really crazy disease, so we don't want to spread it around. Yeah.
We used to put a salt lick out for the deer in Missouri.
Yeah.
Did you ever do that?
People, a lot of people have in the past. It's not allowed in any of our chronic waste and disease surveillance areas, though, because deer would be, leaving their saliva behind. If you're not in a chronic waste and disease surveillance area, you can use them, but, just being cautious.
What about transmission to predators?
So predators, there haven't been any predators that have gotten it so far, though. So some other species other than deer have been infected through like experimental means, but predators can move it around, and even like vultures and stuff. They can poop it out. But apparently bobcats, if you feed a CWD positive deer to a bobcat, somehow its digestive system gets rid of some of the prions. So apparently we need more bobcats.
Are we in a chronic wasting area?
We're currently not. I will show. So Robson County is in a secondary surveillance area, and those are areas that surround a positive area. So we've got Cumberland is a primary or positive area because it has cases, and then we're looking at the counties around it, because if we find it in the area, we want to try to nip it in the bud as quickly as we can. Yeah.
Is there a difference between harvesting and hunting?
No. Yeah, I mean, just different terminology. Just- Yeah.
Do the prions suffer decay as a result of exposure over time? I'm thinking that most, and, well, just plain water will destroy most organisms if they don't have water barriers.
So it's just a protein that's misfolded. They actually can remain infectious in the environment for over a decade. Yeah, and the known methods to deactivate them are 40% solution of bleach per 5 minutes. That will deactivate it on knives and such, and hard surfaces. Fire. Burning it can also kill it, but you have to incinerate it. It's over 1,200 or 1,300 degrees. So if something has it and you're trying to kill it by fire, it's ash at that point. So it's really crazy, and we don't even know enough about prion diseases in humans to prevent them and such. So it's just one of those things that hopefully some smarter folks out there will one day like figure out why a protein like just it's misfolded and goes to its neighbor in the brain and is like, you should be like me, and then they create holes. It's crazy stuff. So far we've had 34 cases, and we're getting on lunchtime, so I'll make this quick. But we've tested thousands upon thousands of deer. We've only had 34 cases in North Carolina, so we're very, very fortunate in that. The northwestern part of the state has had more cases. Cumberland County has had 8 so far, but they're mostly like within like 10 miles of each other. So we're keeping an eye on things, and we need hunters out there helping us to decrease deer numbers in those areas, so decrease spread. But it's not the end of the world. A lot of states have been dealing with it for a while. It's just something we have to adapt to, and we don't want to spread it among deer populations, and we don't want to tempt things if we don't know if it can spread to people. You might have also heard of hemorrhagic disease. It's caused by a virus, and it's spread by no-see-ums, the little biting midges. It happens during the summer, and some deer can survive. At least in that case, populations can recover, and they might be immune the next year. Other diseases, brucellosis, bovine tuberculosis, rabies, though it's not very common, various bacterial infections, and then ticks and other parasites. So you might have heard about alpha-gal, Lone Star ticks. They can spread a meat allergy, essentially. Ticks are a big concern. But tips for living with CWD on the landscape: please avoid feeding deer and don't move live deer. We don't allow fawns to be rehabilitated in these CWD areas because even a fawn can have it. So for the best of the population, we need that fawn to stay where it's from and to not interact with it a lot. But we do still have rehabilitation outside of the CWD areas. For hunters, don't eat deer that appear sick. Get your deer tested for CWD and confirm that it's not detected, that the deer wasn't positive before you eat it. And then don't eat certain things like the brain and spinal cord, which I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound tasty anyway. So there's various resources. If you have any issues, any questions, there's biologists out. Our wildlife helpline, there's contact information up there. and NC State Extension, and the National Deer Association. So the National Deer Association actually has a lot of good articles and stuff too. They do good work. But all right, any more questions? I know it's lunch. There's some resources back there if you'd like any. If you didn't think of anything right now, if it comes up later, you can email or call me. Thank y'all.
April, many, many thanks.
Oh, yeah. Thank y'all for having me.
There is a table, as April has said, full of material, all for us. This is the last lifelong learning for the session. We'll begin again sometime in the fall. So, friends, go in peace. Very well done.